Hello and welcome to our seminar on artificial intelligence and how this impacts us as individuals and as leaders, as well as our society. I am Maria Magdalena Heinrich and I am one of the Women's Informal Network coordinators. And today I'm very pleased to have here with us three expert facilitators who will guide this 90 minutes highly interactive virtual workshop and who will guide the discussion on the human evolution, what makes humans unique, on artificial intelligence, so what is it and what are its key characteristics, and the dilemmas. Which dilemmas have become more evident thanks to the presence of artificial intelligence? So where do we live artificial intelligence on a daily basis? So we have Judith Eberl, my long-year friend here with us. And Judith is one of her main drivers is to provide space for global conversations around external changes that matter and help individuals to reflect about how these changes impact the way we live and we lead. Artificial intelligence is one of the most relevant changes that are affecting all of us at different levels. And Judith loves to facilitate conversations where, leveraging on collective intelligence, individuals and leaders have the opportunity to gain new insights, practice a strategic leadership mindset, and develop flexibility in the face of change. So this is totally in line with the scope of the Women's Informal Network, where we try to facilitate the women's leadership aspects. And then we have the pleasure of welcoming Adriana Strnad. She believes in simplicity and in working with the spirit of play, daring to dream big. I only know her since 5 minutes, more or less, but I have to say that she was already very fun to talk with. And about owning our own choices and showing up in life. As a coach and a trainer and facilitator, Adriana helps organizations excel by developing their capacity to transform. And again, leadership is one of the main topics here. Participatory leadership approaches in building and implementing effective strategies to navigate complexity, uncertainty, and change. And last but not least, I have the pleasure of welcoming Damien Fearns, a psychologist by background. Damien has over 25 years of knowledge and experience in working with diverse groups and individuals in leadership, coaching, therapeutic, and teaching roles. So again, also here, leadership, 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 strategic discussions, and facilitation. Welcome to all three. And I would like to hand over to Judith to start the workshop. Judith, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Marilena. I think I can speak from all three of us that it is a real pleasure of being with you for the next 90 minutes or so. And as Marilena said, I know that the weather generally is quite good now and that there is a lot of distractions out there, and we are in front of the computer the whole day. So even more so, we appreciate you being with us in this virtual space. But it is also fantastic because it all brings us together so that we can have a conversation that we hope will be meaningful for all of us. I have to say, with Adriana and Damien, we have been running several sessions, and every time there is so much we get out of the sessions, out of the conversation. So we really look forward to talking to you. And having said that, I also know that in the meantime, we are very well used to using Zoom. So there is no need of introducing technicalities, but it is a workshop. And it is a workshop, and we would like to see your faces if ever possible. So it doesn't really matter where you are, if you are walking, what you are doing, but if you can turn on the camera that you can see you, yay! That will make it easier to actually talk to you. Yes, thank you so much. Lovely, lovely. Okay, so we will see, you know, if there are other people that are going to join us in the meantime, but for the moment, I think we just dive into it, and I will start by sharing a little bit about what brought us here. And thanks again, Marilena, for inviting us to this workshop. And then I will leave space to Adriana and Damien to also say hello, and then we will start the workshop. So what brought us here? You and AI. Marilena just very nicely introduced our passions. Our passion is leadership development in general, and particularly what has brought us together in this journey is artificial intelligence and how AI impacts us at various levels, because AI is around us, it's part of our reality, it's part of our daily lives. And this is why we have created a program that is called You and AI, where we look at us as human beings and we look at technology and we see how that interaction is already changing, how it is evolving, and how that is impacting us as individuals, how it is impacting organizations and society in general. This is what brought us here. So we have a program that is called You and AI, which has 3 different sub-programs, because we as human beings are very complex beings. Artificial intelligence is complex, so the topic is huge. So this is why we want to dive into various topics. And we have 3 focus areas, which are AI and business environment, AI and decision-making, and AI and dilemmas. And today we will focus on AI and dilemmas, meaning starting reflecting about what dilemmas are coming up, which are new dilemmas because of the presence of artificial intelligence. So this is what brought us here. Adriana, I hand over to you.
Well, this is the space when we usually introduce ourselves and say a little bit about how this is, how is this relevant for us, and why this conversation is important for us. And I think so much has been said already, Marina, and I think you read all this, the whole CV from the webpage or something. So that was a rather thorough introduction. And this is a conversation that is really about you, and also about how is this conversation important for you guys. So the program was born out of passion to explore the forces that are changing the world, okay, and to really understand how are they shaping our environment and how are they changing the requirement for us and how we show up in the world. And being a part of these networks, for me, it tells that you are also people passionate about, like fostering and creating change and making an impact in the world. So I will just say hi. I'm really grateful that we have a chance to have these conversations together, and I'm really looking forward to find out, to kind of bringing our wisdom together and have a conversation about well, what does this mean for all of us? Okay, so thank you. Thanks for the invitation. Damien.
Hello, everybody. Yes, great to be here. And just a very brief introduction from me as well. My passion in getting involved with working with Adriana and Judith in creating these programs and trying to bring more awareness to the business world around artificial intelligence and what its impact might be. My passion is really around looking at what the human impact of that is, either from a kind of neuropsychological point of view, because we've got very plastic, very adaptable brains. So whatever's in our environment is affecting our brain, and our brains change very quickly. So that changes our behavior, our judgment, our perception, our way we orient ourselves to the world. So I'm very interested in what this kind of human impact of that is, and also interested as we go forward to sort of have more of a discerning nature around artificial intelligence. I think one of the things that we do as humans is that we tend to have a new technology or a new idea and we immediately try to apply it everywhere, usually obviously for profit, and to do so is nothing wrong with that, but to just develop a little bit more of a discernment about how we are using AI and where we are using it and maybe why we are using it in those particular fields, and also to put the human back into the center of our world, in a sense, to sort of realize that actually AI is an extension or a product of the way that we think, and it's a tool for us. It's not necessarily, and you know, with new tools, we have to learn how to use them in the best possible way. So really, coming from that sort of perspective, and my background is in psychology, so I'm more aware of, you know, how humans work and what we need to have a sense of well-being, to thrive and to develop and to be all that we can be. So that's my kind of interest there as well. So really pleased to be here, and really pleased to have you all here too. So we've kind of given you an explanation of why we're here, and why we came along and developed this program, and what our interest and our passion is around it. It would be interesting just to hear from you very quickly, maybe by just popping something in the chat box, about what was your particular curiosity. Was there a particular curiosity that you had that brought you along to this particular session? Maybe a particular question or a particular dilemma that you're already considering, which might be interesting just to get an idea of people's expectations of the session, and what's sort of alive or pertinent for them at the moment when it comes to you and AI. So if you'd like to put anything in the chat box, if you wish, around any questions or thoughts that you have, any curiosities, go ahead.
And of course, if you feel like just speaking up, considering that we are still quite a manageable size of group, just you know, unmute and share with us.
Great. Feel free to do that. Marilyn has already started in the chat box with looking at, in terms of leadership and the dilemmas that are brought to leadership. Jeanette Cook there says, will algorithms reduce the need for human decision making in organizations? This is the question we ask ourselves every single day. Will they do that? And how will they do that? I think this is a really, really good question, Jeanette. Really good question. Thank you, Adriana de Oro, as well. Upskilling. And Nadaya, I think I said your name right, I'm not sure. As you've mentioned, AI as a tool which is getting more attention. I'm interested to understand how this may affect the way we work. What are the opportunities? I like that optimistic attitude. What are the opportunities? Yes. How will it impact the future of work and decision-making process? What will be our role as human beings then? Yeah, thank you, Dilla. Nibia.
Are we becoming inhuman with AI? I like this question. Okay. Curiosity, this is wonderful, because one of the key objectives of stimulating these conversations is actually stimulate the curiosity, and having you go out of this session with more questions than ideally you had when coming. So that's definitely one of our objectives. Developing a better understanding of where this is leading opportunities. Yes. So we also have a lot of curiosities around decision making, which is definitely one of the areas that we are covering with the U and AI program. We will not touch so much on decision making today, but we will focus on dilemmas. Okay, I think, you know, just feel free to continue popping things in, which is fantastic. I just would like to start sharing. Can you see my slides? Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah, okay, let me close this here. Okay, so let's start with artificial intelligence, right? So this is about you and artificial intelligence, and let's start looking at what is AI. This is the big question, what is AI? We've put there a few items or things or objects or whatever. The question to you is, what is AI? And I would like to ask Marilena to launch the poll for us. This is a multiple choice poll, so please make your choices. You can select more than one and give us a sense what out of these, Alexa, dishwasher, Agent Smith in the Matrix, Google driverless car, photocopy machine, Facebook auto tag, and Terminator, what is AI from your point of view? Okie dokie. So actually everything seems to be somehow AI. This is the first feeling I get from what I'm seeing here. Okay, continue voting. Pole position, we have Alexa and Google driverless car. They seem to compete 82%. Then we have Terminator and Facebook auto tag. It is more or less second choice. Okay. And then we have the dishwasher, agent matrix, and photocopy machine as the next choice. So more or less every item that we put there. I would just like to capture a couple of thoughts, for example, related to Terminator and dishwasher, for example. Who thought this is AI and why?
The dishwasher, if I can start,
Sure,
because it needs to know when to start and when to end, no, and what program. So there is something that there is a learning process behind. I don't know. That was
like
the idea.
Fantastic, thank you so much. So we are diving into it. It's about learning. Okay, this is the key way why you said, okay, this for me has to do with AI. Okay, who else? Who thought it is actually not AI? Let's, not everyone chose the dishwasher as being an AI. Who chose not? This is not AI, and why?
I guess it depends on the generation of the dishwasher, right? If you have a last generation that you can turn on through your cell phone, then probably it is. If you have an old dishwasher, a husband who washes the dishes, then it's a different story.
It definitely is related also to the age of the dishwasher. Adriana, you wanted to mention something?
No, not really.
Adriana, the other Adriana, not you.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We have two Adrianas.
De oro.
Yeah. Sorry. I thought it's not AI because I thought that it's like if the machine does the same process over and over again, is it really intelligent? It's really like there should be, for me, there should be something different every time, like that comes with this learning that you were mentioning. It's a key element. So if it's like over the same process, then it's like automation only. I don't know. Yeah.
Well said. So there is what you're introducing, Adriana, and thanks for adding that. So there is something related to, is it really intelligent? And is it automation, or is there learning implied? Okay, so we have that learning. Okay. And what about the matrix? Let's take another item, the matrix. Agent Smith, please tell me that you know the movie, and okay, good, because the younger generations said to us, I don't know the movie, I can't say. So I hope that you are more or less in our age range, and therefore you know who the matrix, the Agent Smith is, or the Terminator. So why do you think this is related to the artificial intelligence? Why is it AI from your point of view?
I would say because of the adaptive capacity on different scenarios, based on different scenarios.
Yes. So there is a possibility to adapt to the different scenarios, definitely. Okay. Okay, and Alexa? This is clear. Alexa seems to be clear to everyone. I'm seeing smiley faces. Yeah.
Funny enough, I don't know who Alexa is.
Fantastic, great. Who wants to share who Alexa is? Who
is
Alexa?
it like Siri? Is it
Exactly,
Siri?
yeah.
Well, okay.
Siri, we have it on our phone, right? So Siri is on
Yeah.
our phone. Alexa is normally, it's like
Oh, the little, yes, okay.
how do you, Damien, you know better how to describe it. What is it, like a loudspeaker kind of?
Yeah, well, it's a little unit which will, like, it's basically like Siri, but it's a unit that you add on.
I've seen it.
Produced by Amazon. Yeah.
And then you say, Alexa, turn the light on, for example, or play music. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for starting engaging in this conversation. So what
Tanya has an Alexa at home.
there you are. Okay, fantastic.
What does Alexa think is AI? That would be the interesting question.
We should ask Alexa.
Hi Alexa, what is AI?
AI generally stands for artificial intelligence. As a branch of computer science research, AI is defined as the study of devices that perceive their environments and take actions that maximize their chance of success at some goal. More commonly, the term AI is used to describe when machines are seen as mimicking human cognitive functions such as learning and problem solving.
Interesting definition.
Thank you, Alexa.
We don't need to do the rest of the workshop then. Alexa's done it for us. There you go.
Yes, exactly. Wonderful. Okay, thank you so much. So, what is AI is the question, and actually, in terms of responses, your responses are all, let's say, good depending on how you look at it. Definitely, Alexa and Google driverless cars, as well as Facebook auto tag. This is where the facial recognition is involved. These are the, let's say, the classical artificial intelligence examples. Terminator and Agent Smith from the Matrix is what we call artificial superintelligence. So these are artificial intelligences that are actually outperforming human beings, and therefore it's called ASI. In terms of dishwasher and photocopy machine, now this is where it gets tricky, right? So right now, personally, I'm not aware of a photocopy machine which has AI embedded. I am well aware that there are dishwashers that have artificial intelligence embedded. So typically, when there is a task that is carried out, that doesn't automatically mean that this has artificial intelligence. So there is some automation there. It can have AI, but it does not necessarily have AI. For dishwashers, for example, there are some huge dishwashers that can evaluate how many dishes you have and how dirty they are and how much water is needed, and make certain choices around it. And this is where AI comes into play. So
if a photocopy machine can add lights for the, when the image is not clear enough, and it can add the light, is that part of the artificial intelligence, or not necessarily?
For me, this is not artificial intelligence. Okay. So also, it still is within a certain frame where certain functions are required. So there is, if it doesn't go, but this is my understanding. I'm not, we forgot to say, we are not AI experts, we are facilitators. So we are, when it comes to technicalities around AI, probably we are the wrong people. But the question is really, things that we are used to seeing are changing in terms of their functionalities and what they can do. And sometimes AI is already part of what is being used. And why we talk about living and leading with artificial intelligence is because AI is already part of our lives and is already influencing us. For example, facial recognition is definitely something that, and on the internet, if we purchase a book and we constantly get additional book suggestions, this is also because AI is taking track of our orders, and therefore is influencing the marketing. And this is why I really like this quote. Let me go back to it, which is, AI is everywhere. It's not that big scary thing in the future. AI is here with us. This is a data scientist that Fei-Fei Li who said this quote, and I really think that it represents where we are moving ourselves in a reality where AI is already embedded, and we don't really realize, and this is why we think it's so important to have these conversations. Now, AI is nothing new, okay? It has definitely had an acceleration over the last few years, but it's nothing new. And this is a short video that shows a little bit of the history of AI. I will start playing it now. Please let me know if the audio is okay.
Fascination with artificial intelligence began a long time ago. The ancient Greeks had myths about intelligent robots and artificial beings, and from the 10th to the 1st century BC, Chinese and Egyptian engineers built mechanical men and other automatons designed to automatically follow a predetermined sequence of operations or respond to predetermined instructions. Throughout the ensuing centuries, philosophers, mathematicians, scientists and authors continued their pursuit of thinking machines, and by the 1950s, a generation of scientists, mathematicians and philosophers had the concept of artificial intelligence, or AI, culturally assimilated in their minds. This was Alan Turing, noted mathematician and World War II era codebreaker. In his 1950 paper, Computing Machinery and Intelligence, he discussed how to build intelligent machines and how to test their intelligence using what has become known as the Turing test. He suggested since humans use available information and reason to solve problems and make decisions, why can't machines? In 1956, the field we know of today as artificial intelligence was formally founded at the Dartmouth Summer Research Project on Artificial Intelligence, DSRPAI, hosted by John McCarthy and Marvin Minsky. Achieving an artificially intelligent being wasn't so simple. After several reports criticizing progress in AI, government funding and interest in the field dropped off, a period from 1974 to 80 that became known as the AI winter. The field later revived in the 1980s, when the British government started funding it again, in part to compete with efforts by the Japanese. The field experienced another major winter from 1987 to 1993, coinciding with the collapse of the market for some of the early general-purpose computers and reduced government funding. Popular support for AI was rising through well-publicized events. In 1997, IBM's Deep Blue became the first computer to beat a chess champion when it defeated Russian Grandmaster Garry Kasparov. In 2011, the computer giant's question-answering system Watson won the quiz show Jeopardy! By beating reigning champions Brad Rutter and Ken Jennings. In the first decades of the 21st century, investment and interest in AI has boomed. The last few years have been characterized by the application of machine learning to problems in every area of our lives. A new wave of AI-first businesses is flowing into the market, shifting the competitive landscape. The speed of learning and change is rapid and exponential, and as such can often feel overwhelming and difficult to keep up with. Perhaps the AI revolution will be the fastest and most pivotal revolution our species has encountered, bringing with it as yet unknown benefits or costs.
Okay, so let's add a little bit of data when it comes to investments. As you could see from the video of the short history recap, definitely there has been an increase over the last few years, and that has been obviously related to a huge amount of investments. The big players, Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft, Google, Apple, have invested and bought and created and founded startups. They have altogether more than 60 AI first startups and are continuously investing in technology. And if you ask leaders and executives in organizations, 75% are saying that AI will be implemented in their organization within 3 years. So obviously this seems to be very much present, and the pace with which the change is happening is enormous. We already shared the objectives of the session today. As already mentioned, the field is huge, AI is huge. Today we will focus on dilemmas, but before focusing on and starting conversations around AI-related dilemmas, let's start with a little bit of an introduction about us as human beings. And with that, I hand over to Damien. We can see you like a little bit with various shades in your face.
Yeah, I just realized that I don't usually present at this time of the evening, and the sunlight actually comes right in my eyes. So yeah, AIs don't have to worry about that so much. So yeah, can you see me? Can you see me okay? I can't see myself at the moment. There you go. So, but yes, so one of the things that's interesting to look at is, you know, we have this artificial intelligence, like the video says, which is exponentially growing upon the earth and being used in lots and lots of different fields. And I think sometimes it's also important to stop and say, well, what is it that the human being does? What is it that makes the human being unique? And what are the particular qualities and faculties that we have? You know, what are these abilities that we have as a human being? And how are they similar to how artificial intelligence works, and how are they different? So we heard before about artificial superintelligence, for instance, where artificial intelligence outperforms humans. And there's lots of artificial intelligence that outperforms humans in very specific ways. But outperforming humans overall, that would be a totally different question. And this is one of the interesting things to look at. What does AI do, and what do we do? And therefore, how can we actually work together to make the most of each of our abilities, and maybe work more and more in unison? And that means sometimes sitting down, sitting back, and trying to make sense of exactly what the human being does, and having a deeper understanding of what the human being's particular qualities and characteristics are. So there are many sort of lists of these that we could look at, and this particular one, I think, is a way of encapsulating some of the particular qualities that we have that make us uniquely human. Not only make us uniquely human, but have given rise to the development of culture, the development of civilization, the development of our technologies, the ability for us to form societies which involve, you know, huge groupings of human beings that could develop technologies like computers and spaceships and genetic medicine and all the rest of it. All of that actually really relies primarily on the ability for us to work well on all of these, and in fact all of these different qualities. You know, our civilization, everything that we've produced, our technology, is a product of these qualities of the human being that sort of grouped together. So first of all, it seems that our brain seemed to evolve, and our limbic system, particularly this sort of middle part of our brain, seemed to evolve, and this top part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, which came after it, primarily to help us to deal with social environment, where we had to develop our emotional brain to be able to connect with other people, to have a sense of empathy, to be able to work in larger and larger groups. So if we go back in time, there are many theorists and historians that give us the idea that perhaps we were in much smaller groups, and we reserved our sense of connection and empathy and our ability to communicate our emotions and maybe similar stories about our particular family or a particular tribe. But that was all reserved for maybe quite a close-knit group of people. And as we developed and started to sort of work with other tribes, if you will, and work with other groups, then we grew into larger and larger groups, and we could pool our resources, we could pool our knowledge, and that gave us not just the ability to learn from each other and to develop culture, but also the ability for us to start to maybe take on some tasks which require large groups of people to do so. So not just war, but the development of agriculture, the development of the building of cities and buildings, etc., that is required a lot of people to get together in connection for a common goal rather than being in conflict with each other. So this ability for us to connect is a very innate ability in the human being. And empathy grows from this ability to connect. So even a brand new baby, when we look at connection and empathy here, even a brand new baby, when a baby is born, even though they've got the even though the sight is very blurred, they have the ability to pick out a human face from the blurs that are in front of them, to focus attention on a human face, and indeed even to attempt to mimic through muscle movements the shape of the face that's in front of them. And of course, when we mirror or mimic the shape of the face in front of us, this creates a connection. And all mammals actually have some elements of this. And it's actually one of the reasons why dogs end up looking like their owners, because they mirror each other. Anyway, that's another subject. But and our ability to empathize with each other, which can override our sense of being in conflict or trying to compete with each other, because we can see commonalities, we can feel commonalities with each other. And so this brings us to be able to work in groups to get things done. So emotions are the things which drive us. Artificial intelligence doesn't have emotions, for instance, and emotions are the things which motivate us, motivate each of our behaviors. And in one way or another, our behaviors are driving us to connect with the outside world, to the social world outside, whether that's family or our wider social groups, in order to get a distinct set of emotional needs met. And as we do that, we actually end up building our own personality through our experiences. And then we develop a sense of self, a distinct sense of self, and being a separate identity maybe to the other people around us, and a distinct sense of self as being different from our environment. And that comes as we build ourselves through getting our emotional needs met from our environment. We also have, of course, this imagination or the dreaming brain. All mammals dream. And there seems to be a function of dreaming which is about resolving some of the emotional sort of stimulations and emotional tensions from the day before, allowing us to clear out some of our thinking, and in order to learn as well, to clear out some of our toxins in our brain through our process of learning. Also, when we're looking at imagination, probably one of our most powerful faculties, and the imagination kind of underpins all of our thinking. It's not just about imagining fantastical things, but actually it's impossible to do mathematics for a human being to do mathematics without imagination, for instance, because this requires some form of abstract thought, some form of dealing with something that doesn't actually exist in reality. It's not concrete. So the imagination allows us to conjure up, if you like, almost in a theatre-like way, the ability to play with ideas and concepts, to start to develop tools for how we interact with the world. And to reiterate those tools through our learning, through our extensive learning, so that we might have started off with an axe head 70,000 years ago, but now we've got a computer in front of us, and that is the direct evolution of that axe head, and that's taken imagination for us to create iterations from that axe head through to the computer that's in front of you right now. So imagination gives us the ability to have a sense of creativity, to take one thing and use it for another, to have a sense of free association in the way that we look at the world, and to maybe connect things that in ways that perhaps if we were thinking in a linear fashion, we might not connect them at all. Or a logical fashion, we might not connect them at all. We have a sense of memory, which allows us to develop a sense of personality and consolidate our everyday learning, so that we can recall our memory and then readapt ourselves to our current environment in relation to our learning. And that gives us a distinct sense of personality, a narrative to our lives, a story that we can create. And those stories that we have, that of course, we use language to communicate our stories, to communicate our abstract ideas with each other, so that we can have a shared consciousness and a shared understanding, and we can develop culture itself and the way that we go forward. We also have a rational mind, which helps us to make sense of the world in many ways, all of these help us to make sense of the world. And also gives us the ability to work logically through processes, to weigh up pros and cons, to have that kind of if this then that kind of thinking, which requires this rational mind and this reasoning mind in order for us to make good decisions and make sense of the world around us, and make sense of quite different elements of information in that process. And in some ways, what we might consider to be artificial intelligence is a mirroring of some of our language abilities, a mirroring of some of our memory abilities, and a mirroring of some of our ability to weigh up pros and cons and have that logical if that then thinking. Currently, we haven't got any artificial intelligences which can empathize in a real way. or necessarily connect in an embodied way with another being, that have an experience of an emotion, that, as far as we know, have any sense of imagination or any dreaming aspect to them. And we also don't necessarily have any artificial intelligences that have something that is probably one of the most mystical things in human beings, which is the observing self, which is often talked about in many more mystical or religious traditions or more ancient traditions. And that's the ability for us to actually take stock of ourselves from a unique point of awareness, which is awareness of awareness itself. So this observing self, or this witness, this ability to be aware of awareness itself, which gives us a very distinct kind of consciousness in the world, and also gives us the ability to have a sense of choice and free will over deciding who it is that we want to be in our lives, a sense of being able to create ourselves, choosing what we want to learn and choosing how we want to be, and the decisions that we make in our lives with a distinct sense of control and autonomy, creating a feedback loop with the world where we can see our outcomes and then learn from those outcomes so that we can develop ourselves even more as we go forward. Now, this is a very quick sort of snapshot of the human being, and I could go into massive detail in each of those, but Judith obviously wants me to get going because of time, and so we'll just end very quickly with a little bit of a definition of an intelligence. And this is quite a nice sort of way that kind of binds in both the human and somewhat the artificial level of intelligence as well. The resultant of the process of acquiring, storing in memory, retrieving, combining, comparing, and using in new contexts information and conceptual skills. And in some ways, many of the qualities or faculties that we have that we looked at in the last slide give us the ability to do this and more to some degree. So intelligence in this sense is a very specific way of looking at it from Lloyd Humphreys. Judith, next slide.
Yes. And that, thank you, Damien.
You go for it.
And that takes us to what is artificial intelligence, because obviously we have heard what makes us as human beings unique. The question is, going back to our original question, what is AI? What it is hardly defined. There is not one definition that says exactly what AI is. I've picked a couple of definitions, one from John McCarthy, which was one of the founders that we heard in the video of AI, and he defines artificial intelligence is the science and engineering of making intelligent machines, especially intelligent computer programs. And another computer scientist says artificial intelligence is the science of making machines do things that would require intelligence if done by men. So this gives us a sense that it is related to what we relate to intelligence as human intelligence, and there are machines that are doing certain tasks better than us or similar than us, and that's the question: what is it? And you know, this is just a snapshot of a world. There is a lot of terms. There is artificial intelligence technologies. There are multiple that can solve multiple problems and you know, tasks. Machine learning is probably one terminology that everybody has heard, is familiar with. Deep learning, symbolic, sub-symbolic, artificial narrow intelligence, artificial general intelligence. So let me just pick out a few things, and let me just take away the slide so that I can actually see you. So I think there are certain things that, you know, if I want you to remember 2 or 3 things, these are the ones, okay? So right now we are talking about AGI, artificial general intelligence. Today we are talking about ANI, artificial narrow intelligence. So it is still narrow, okay? General intelligence, AGI, is what we consider AI that can do what humans can do. Okay, it would be the same kind of abilities. This is AGI, which we are not there yet. Okay, so we are still in the narrow space, ANI. Then we have the ASI, the artificial superintelligence, and this is where we have the Matrix, we have the Terminator that are doing things, let's say, outperforming human beings, which is very far away. And then, you know, how far away are we? There are conversations and discussions around it, but definitely it's not around the corner. Now, when it comes to what AI is and what it can do, this is the second thing I would like you to go away with. We have heard at the beginning in the ice-breaking exercise where you were talking about learning, right? AI that learns and AI that does certain tasks. And there is actually AI that learns and AI that does not learn. So this is the second point. So, for example, in the Amazon store storage, how do you call them? Spaces, storage, warehouses. This is where you have little robots moving the parcels from A to B, right? So this is an AI that does not learn. So the parcel needs to be shipped from A to B, and that's it. But it is AI, which does not learn. But then there is AI that actually learns. And this is where I go back to my slide deck here, and I show you a little example that shows you how this works. This is a little game. It's Atari Breakout, this game. And this shows the mechanism of how the AI actually adjusts and adapts. So it has sensory input and it has an objective to reach, which is to score the best possible scores. So it has to win. Doesn't have any other information apart from that. But it has sensors, so it can sense. And after 120 minutes of training, it plays like an expert. So it has sensors, it can sense. It understands what is happening. It acts in a different way, and it learns, and it improves. Okay? So AI that learns is, for example, machine learning, deep learning, reinforcement learning. These are AI that learn, and this is what happens. So they sense, they comprehend, they act, and they learn, and then the learning loop starts again and again and again. And what is obviously, I think this is probably very familiar to everybody, when it comes to size of amount of data and speed, this is where artificial intelligence obviously has a competitive advantage towards human beings. So in terms of analyzing information in a very fast way, this is where AI definitely can support us. But this is as much as I wanted to say about AI, and I think it's definitely time to start talking about dilemmas. Adriana, what's the dilemma? What's the dilemma? We can't hear you.
Okay, so without long introduction, okay, what we want to do now is really invite a conversation in the breakout rooms. To really have a small group reflection around, you know, like what are the questions arising in your mind and what dilemmas do you see in your environment coming up because of the presence of artificial intelligence. You know, like funnily enough, we created artificial intelligence, okay? With everything that we are, artificial intelligence is a product of who we are as humans. We strive for comfort, we strive for success and to make our lives easier. So we have created technology, advanced it, created it in a sense that it kind of processes information faster, so it can do some things better than we can do. So it brought us on the edge of, it brought some new questions. So how much of our lives do we surrender and how do we collaborate? I think it was Nadaya also, what are the opportunities that it is bringing in our life? So this question about what are the new dilemmas coming up, okay, we're going to break into breakout rooms and have a conversation around two questions. One is, what are the examples of the AI-related dilemmas that you currently see in your own environment? Okay, do you ask yourself a question, like, should you delegate AI, decisions around your breakfast, around your route, around your surgeries, around your education, around whether you are, like fit for a job, so where do you see dilemmas coming up in your everyday life? And what do you believe the impact is for you as an individual or as a leader? We have broad interests. We come from different parts of the world with different questions. So this is a space to have a conversation. We're going to have about 15 minutes and we are going to record our observations, like on a Jamboard. So I'm going to put a link to the Jamboard in the chat box. And when you click on that link, it is going to open in a separate window and your facilitators in the group conversations are going to lead into, like how are we going to use it. So I'm not going to make an introduction about the Jamboard. I'm just going to invite Marilena to send us into 3 groups. Each of the groups is going to have a facilitator and we're going to meet back in the circle here in the room for about 15 minutes. So see you in the rooms, guys. Yeah.
See you there.
Andrea, did you get the link to join the group? Hello, you're back again. Sophie seems like floating. It's funny how you look like. Okay, this is better. Adriana, you're muted. We can't hear you.
I thought Sophia was lying down.
Yeah, me too. She looks like...
My phone is charging, so I try to keep it in the position because my computer is going to be restarted. So it's technologies preventing us from doing what we want, the way we want. So we accommodate.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Marilena, what's going on with the others? I thought they're gonna, got consumed in the conversation in the breakout rooms. Where are they? Where is everybody?
No, I think we are back.
Yes, now we are all back.
Yeah.
We are all back in plenary now.
Okay, cool. So we are on top of the time, actually. I thought the breakout rooms are going to close after 15 minutes and they didn't. So we got kind of...
We also continued. We had a very intense conversation.
So I don't know, with all the acknowledging that people might need to leave. Okay, we are on top of the time. So if you can stay, it would be really great if you could hear the reflections, from the breakout room and what was going on for you guys. So just to check with everybody, are you okay with staying a few minutes over the time? Nadaya says, cool. So yeah, Rosalud as well. So we got hacked by our own conversations. So let me hear. So whoever, yeah, thank you, Sonia. So Judith, what was going on in room number 1?
Okay, let me you know, I would actually want to leave a space to someone of the group if you feel like wanting to share. Let me share our Jamboard. Is anyone willing or interested in just sharing in a couple of sentences the core elements of our conversation? If not, I can do this, but I think it would be nicer if we had really very engaging conversations. Anyone of the group wants to share? How much data are we willing to share, or do we want to share? You know, how much do we, who is going to benefit from the data that we are sharing, and how much is the data that we are putting in the internet giving us certain services, but also manipulating ourselves. And then that is also linked to data protection and ethics. And we also said there was a whole conversations about skills related to that. So how much of the current work will be outsourced or done by AI in the future, and how much are we prepared around this? And this is where we then move to the impact to us in terms of upskilling. You know, how can we build capabilities and develop certain skills that will be needed more in the future? And I think that there was this is now my interpretation, that there was a conversation around the right mindset. Are we prepared to go in that direction? And how is the educational system supporting us right now? And there was, I think, a great example of one of the participants saying, my son is saying, university is not giving me what I actually need for the future. So how is the whole skill set changing, and how are we getting those skills? And the critical appraisal skills, so the whole sense making and understanding how to use the information in the correct way. And then we had a conversation around the impact on leadership, and I think there was a common sense about the fact that leaders should know more about AI, so have that digital literacy, understand more the benefits and challenges, and also promote the fact that people should know more about it. It's not only about themselves, but also their people, and they should foster learning around that. So this is how I would summarize it. Any aspects that the team members would like to add? Does it sound right? Okay, good. There's some non-verbal, so let's move to the next group, maybe.
Yeah, maybe you can move to us. We do
sure.
have so we do have a spokesperson. Sudoka, you were saying you're going to share what was going on in our room. So
yes.
Thank
I
you.
think from our room, we basically summarize, and other group members can actually come in, the equity issue, you know, the concern that machines are going to take over the human work that we are currently doing, and how we're actually going to use this AI in our work, especially in the developmental aspect of the work. We work with beneficiaries who are in the remote parts of the world, and some places where there is actually no access to data or to network. How is that going to impact the work that we do? And we also talked about whether AI is actually a friend or an enemy, and also what new skills do we need to do right now to probably overcome, you know, the aspect of AI, which is really coming very quickly. And also, how do we bring AI as close as possible to people, really at that local level? So I think in a summary, that's what I would say from our group. But again, group members, please chip in maybe there are some points that you would like to highlight.
So Sophie, Rosalind, Sonia, I think Sebastian has left. Okay, if there is nothing to add, then maybe we can hear from the last group.
Damien's group.
Yes, ours was an incredible discussion, actually, really interesting. All of us were going to be spokespeople, but there was a little bit of shyness in the group. If anybody would like to bring up what was pertinent for them, you can do. I'm going to open that invitation to you first. Would anybody like to pick up the baton?
I could kick off on a couple. So we had generally possibly some more pessimistic views, and one more positive person in the group, which was nice and refreshing and good. I was one of them on the more pessimistic side, so maybe Maria Victoria can come in afterwards. But so one issue raised was the recruitment, the risk that we use artificial intelligence to do, if you like, the first sorting through of CVs from the long list down to the short list. So that's done within human resources before it gets to the technical division. And by doing that, the fact that it relies on keywords and so forth, we risk cutting some people out, and it can also reinforce some biases. But then someone else chipped in and said, well, actually, we're using it to actually remove these biases. So there was a difference of opinion within the group, which was interesting. Another issue raised was medical sphere. You can see, can machines substitute the doctor in surgeries? You know, are doctors at that very crucial moment, are they going to make the right decision? Does the mother live or does the child live? You know, that there are horrible dilemmas that we need to think about. And so then we discussed the issue that, you know, what's behind, who gives them the ethic, who gives them the ethics and the principles behind making these decisions. So we were saying that, you know, philosophers, psychologists, they really need to be running along at the same pace as engineers and scientists to make sure that we've got the right value system. But then what value system, whose value system should ultimately determine these important decisions? So that was another issue raised. Another one, I'm saying mine, so the others please step in afterwards. There's the issue with, you know, in our smartphones when we read the newspaper articles, and then this is self-replicating, and you end up reading more news pieces about something you are already interested in or you already believe in. So it sort of reinforces your beliefs, and you end up being in this echo chamber if you're not careful, and that can be quite risky unless you make the conscious decision to step outside your comfort zone and read something that you wouldn't otherwise do normally. So I think I've gone on the more pessimistic side. Maybe someone else can speak about the more positives.
Thanks, Jeanette. I think you mentioned Maria. I wonder if Maria would step in.
Thank you for naming Maria. Yeah, I think more than optimistic, it is a balanced approach. Not everything is black and white, and I think that it depends very much on what we are putting and how are we engaging. I think it has some positive sides because it's forcing us to think differently, and everything that is forcing us to think differently is definitely opening our sphere of engagement, of knowledge, and it has a possibility to grow and development as well. So ethics was a key question, no doubt, but not blaming the artificial intelligence per se, but more the general society. We didn't need artificial intelligence to have a crisis on ethics, no? So yeah, that was the point, basically.
Great. Thank you, Maria. Would anybody else like to mention anything from our group? If not, I know we're short on time. I think the other thing that I think was kind of one of the things that we discussed as well, which I think sort of Marilena also sort of maybe brought into some degree, and we had a bit of a discussion around, was and Jeanette mentioned it as well, was something that it's actually, they talk about this a little bit in that recent documentary on Netflix on coded bias. So because you put information into an artificial intelligence and it works with that information, then it can recycle or replicate the information that's being put in there, which I think we sort of talked about in terms of sort of continuing stereotypes or biases in that sense. But that might also lead to, depending on how the AI is set up, it could possibly lead to somewhat of a stagnation, because you're recycling the same ideas, and fresh thinking often, from a human perspective, often comes from getting outside of the box, from moving into the unknown. So we talked a little bit about how AI tends to work in the known a little bit, and how that might be a dilemma when it comes to decision making in terms of leadership. What is it that you're considering in order to make the decision, and what else could you consider? So reflecting a little bit of what Jeanette said there as well. So I think that's one of the dilemmas as we go forward that maybe we all need to sort of bear in mind to some degree as well. Great.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I think we got a pretty good picture about the diversity, like of all the questions, the diversity of perspectives, and the depth, and this, I don't know if it's the size, but the really amazing big question and curiosity around what does AI bring into our world. And with that, I think, Judith, at the beginning, you said, we want more questions at the end than at the beginning. I think we got that.
I think so.
So I'm going to leave it to you to lead us to the closure of the call. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So first of all, thank you so much for this very engaging conversational space. We would really like to continue sharing and discussing with you, and we would like to point you to our program, which might be a natural way of continuing diving more into it, because obviously there is a lot of implications, a lot of things to reflect about, to understand. And as I mentioned earlier, today we have this program called You and AI. It is a series of programs, meaning that we first want to dive into AI and business environment, then AI and decision making, and AI and dilemmas. So they are standing alone programs, but they also go together as a series. There is no sequentiality around it. But if someone really wants to know more about the technology, so AI, but related to a specific perspective, then this could be the right program for you. How it looks and how it works specifically, it is a blended learning approach, which means that it's all virtual or digital. And this is an example of AI and business environment, for example. So there is a digital platform where content is provided for self-learning, and we call it flip learning. So there are digital learning activities, and then we meet virtually 3 times. Kickoff is a virtual call, virtual workshop 1 and virtual workshop 2. So over a period of 6 to 8 weeks, you are continuously exposed to thinking about AI and business environment in this example. And this is just a snapshot of the digital platform of the AI and business environment program. For example, there are 4 what we call workouts. So it's 4 chapters: human evolution, artificial intelligence, complexity, and impact, which is in a self-learning mode, but it is an interactive platform. I really like that platform because it gives a possibility to continuously interact with the trainers and with the participants. It has a lot of reflective questions. It leads to actions and to application of that specific content. And then on a regular basis, we come together in the virtual space, similar to what we did today. We actually make sense of what we have learned. We discuss and we share different perspectives. and we continue the learning in this in the collective intelligence space. And there is the next AI and business environment open enrollment course, which is kicking off in September. We have the kickoff on the 14th of September. Then we have the workouts and the virtual sessions as described. It would be wonderful if you would like to join us. And you can find us, and I will put that in the chat as well. You can find us on the JuPantaRhei website and on LinkedIn, as well as via email. And I will stop sharing, and I will rather put the contact details in the chat so that you can, can capture that. And if you would like to stay in touch, for us, it would be definitely a big, big pleasure to see you and to continue conversations with you. And if you would like to leave us with a little feedback of today's session, one word before exiting of your takeaways, that would be, of course, very appreciated. But I also understand that we are really half of the group in the meantime. So really appreciate your extra time.
Indeed. The time is always very difficult to manage, especially when you're having sort of philosophical discussions. Absolutely. It gets us away. So I would like to thank you very, very much, Judith, Adriana, and Damien, for a very well-structured session. And I think we came with some questions. We are leaving with more questions. But what for me personally was reassuring, and what I've heard and what I get away, is the question about putting the human back to the center. And so to think about the opportunities versus the risks that artificial intelligence can bring. And what has been reassuring is that the artificial super intelligence is not around the corner yet. So we may have the time to think about what it is that we want to achieve with the artificial intelligence. And I agree that it has been said earlier that philosophers, sociologists, psychologists, I think the society in general needs to come with the different perspectives to discuss those ethical questions. And in fact, the third point is ethics. And so making sure that the decisions that are being made by machines eventually will be, still putting the human in the center. So that is all from my side. I would like to thank you very much. And I can see that there are some messages coming up in the chat. Perhaps a couple of minutes still. I will leave it open for you to write your getaways, your lessons learned, or still the questions that you have. And thank you also for sharing your program, Judith and Adriana and Damien. And I wish you best of success with your program also. It is very important.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all, ladies, for your very active participation today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Many thanks.
Bye, everyone.